Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Omens Rising Alpha Playtest hosted by Wandering DM. One of the things that I would like to do as a thank you to our host is talk about their wonderful sponsors. They are sponsored by Roll20, which we are going to be using tonight when we go through some of the mechanics for using the cards. They are also sponsored by Found Familiar Coffee. Great place to get your coffee from if that is your caffeinated drink of choice. They also are sponsored by Mage Hand Press, the makers of Dark Matter. And Dark Matter is a sci-fi 5th edition compatible tabletop RPG. They have a new book coming out soon, relatively soon. I know it's in process. I don't know anything else about that, but you can definitely check them out. And I believe that's everybody at the moment.
Probably.
So, welcome to our stream and welcome to the first look at Omens Rising. We have one of our team out for the night due to a pet emergency. So keep the dog Ace in your thoughts and prayers if you are so inclined, as Fen is taking care of his companion there. For everyone else, we're going to go around the table and introduce yourselves to let everyone in chat know who you are, the things that you are doing that are awesome, and then also let them know what drew you into this project and what you're excited for going forward. So we're going to start in the top left-hand corner of the screen with Wasa. Wasa, let us know who you are and what it is about Omens Rising.
Hey guys, Wasa here, and thank you all for coming. We're very excited, and I'm super excited and very nervous. But so a little bit about me is I am one of the project leads for Omens Rising, and in general, what I do is creative writing in the TTRPG scene. So you can find some of the works that I've done. One of the works I've done for Sina Una, and a couple more that are in the works. The wonderful thing about writing is I can't really talk about most of the things until they get published, but that's okay. In terms of Omens Rising, I was drawn to this project from the get-go. So if any of you guys have done the playtest, it was a wonderful experience to create a character with exciting prompts that really made them have a lot more dimension than what I'd originally experienced. So that was something that I was really drawn to, as well as this idea that really encompasses Omens Rising, which is connectedness and community and that ability to tell your story. So those are the things that I look forward to sharing with you all, and the things that I love about Omens Rising. That's it for me.
Thank you, Wasa. Narcissus, or aka Dylan, who is the person who made the wonderful overlays that you're seeing, as well as the logo and all of our branding at Omens Rising. So if you love that graphic design as much as we do, definitely give Dylan some love in chat and give him also a follow on Twitter. His Twitter handle is the same as what you see in Twitch. So going forward, we have Jamar.
Oh, it's me already.
Yep, it's you already. We're going across the top.
I'm Jamar, Muscler if you're nasty. I am actually currently a student, but I'm graduating soon, so I will not be soon. I am one of the culture writers for Omens Rising, one of 12. I'm part of almost a full fellowship, if not a complete fellowship. Anyway, as for in general, I'm mostly just a writer. I also draw, but as of right now, I'm focusing on being a student. So once that's done, I will be doing more of what I do now, which is write things for games, tell stories for games, games that are flat, games that are moving, all kinds of games. Any games you'll give me, even TV, mostly TV. Let's see. When I first heard about the project, I had gotten a tweet from a friend that was just like, "Hey, this is something you could do." And I was like, "Okay, what is it?" And from what I understood, it was just like a writing position for a fantasy thing, and fantasy is 99.99% my wheelhouse. And so I was like, "Sure, let's do it." And I shooted it and I shot it. I'm very good at English. This is why I'm a writer. And that's after being like exposed to it, and when I first made my first character, which is that's how you're initiated here at this Omens Rising, is you make a character. I realized that not only my background in like using tarot, like many a baby witch will, and also just a general interest in the mindset that goes into believing in destiny and fate and any kind of precog and the greater scheme of things, that there's a place for it, and also like the counter of not believing in any of that. So there's a place for anyone in between, really. So most people, please play our game. But it's a great game. I don't really know what else to tell you. It's fantastic, especially for people who will play tabletop RPGs and think to themselves, I really like the crunchy mechanics, but I really wish I had more time to like experience the story without having to muddle through some of the more crunchy mechanics. Because that's what this is. It's already done. But that's it for me, I think.
Thank you, Jamar. Appreciate it. Before moving forward, I just want to, I don't believe I said this before, but I wanted to remind people, we will have closed captioning. Our producer is working on it. There's been a technical glitch with Zoom to get them to display, but it is being worked on. So our apologies for not having them up and running yet, but it is underway. Leona.
I worked on my diction.
You're doing fine. Leona, tell us who you are, what all the wonderful things that you do, and what brought you to Omens Rising.
Hello, my name is Leona. I use she, her pronouns. You can find me on Twitter at the Leona Maple. I am a consultant and sensitivity reader. I am a consultant for Omens Rising, as well as one of the culture writers for the twin cultures. I think the simplest way to explain what I do is I enjoy helping projects, particularly tabletop RPG projects, become more intersectional and inclusive through sensitivity reading work and consulting work. And I also run a show over on the Dicey Amazons on Saturdays at 2 p.m. Pacific time called Vibrant Legends, which is an all BIMPOC one-shot series. So if you are BIMPOC, interested in playing one-shots, come join us. If you are not BIMPOC, you are always welcome in the audience. We love having folks join us. Beyond that, feel free to follow me on Twitter to find out more about my projects. Of course, NDAs and all that, so I can't tell you what I'm working on, but trust me, there's some cool stuff. So you're really going to want to follow, because I can't wait to tell you about everything that's happening when I can legally tell you about it. Having said all of that, what drew me to Omens Rising, a year ago, I got a DM from Chris asking about creating a world full of belonging. And I was intrigued from the get-go. And I think I really like the idea of the cartomancy aspects and all of that kind of stuff. I am into tarot and things like that. And that what I discovered in my meeting with Chris is that the game starts at character creation, and the magic that happens, the uncanny coincidences, are not all that coincidental or uncanny. The magic is really infused into it, and there was just something about that was just sold me, and I was like, all right, I'm here. Like that's what excites me, and that's what drew me in, was just all of that goodness. So that's me.
I want to say that's almost a universal
Mhm.
experience. By the way.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
after your first meeting with Chris, you're just like, I'm not leaving. I live here now.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well,
The
thank
magic.
you. Thank you. That brings us to Amber. Amber, tell us what who you are, all the amazing things that you do, and what it was that drew you in, and what you're excited about.
Hi, I'm Amr Amaraz, and I do everything. No, so I do too much. I do writing, game design, podcasting, streaming, crying. You know, the necessary components of a healthy work-life balance. But hey, yeah, that did actually contain the serious answer in it. So I do game design and writing. I work on a bunch of freelance stuff. I do also work on my own projects like Chimera and my culture for Omens Rising. I do podcasting and streaming like on the Utopia Network, as well as guesting just all over the place. Currently on the mornings, on Saturday morning, if you want to get a double feature of me, I'm on Lark Network doing an all Pimpock Mask campaign. So yeah, I do too much. Someone free me. No, I'm kidding. It's fun. I enjoy it. But yeah, what drew me to Omens Rising? Chris and I were talking just back when it was an early idea, and Chris had me play pretty early character creation before there were even mechanics, when it was just drawing the cards and creating a character using sort of tarot principles and some structure of that became the character sheet in the end. Like I can see how it flew from there, but there were no like mechanics for skills, no mechanics for anything at the time. It was just kind of build a character from the card draws, and it created a really fun character, and I wanted to see where it went. And so fast forward a year and some change, amount of time,
About that, yeah.
and we're here. Yeah.
And we are so glad to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Emmer's done a variety of different things. Emmer did all the math for me.
Do you do math? I still need some math.
Did all the math for me to verify that, you know, my probabilities were not way off, and to help me with settling in some of those mechanics that came out of that first conversation. So we've got a number of people here that have been early on into the project to show you or to show off some of what we do. At this point, well, I guess it's my turn. My name's Chris Geary. You can find me on Twitter at Chris Geary. You can find me here in chat under the same name. I am a tabletop RPG player in games. You can find me right now mostly on Wandering DM. You can also find me designing in the background of Omens Rising. I will say I maybe like kicked the stone and started it rolling on this, but I am not in like the progenitor per se. There have been a lot of people that you'll see across the different playtests that we're doing who have been a part of this project. It truly is a collaborative and communal project, and we are blessed. We really are. And I see a couple of them in chat, Phoenix Femme and Ryomasa. Ryomasa has been one of the people that kind of grabbed that rock and then pushed it even harder and faster to get it rolling. So yeah, we've got some great people on this team, and we're very proud of the work that we've done. So we're gonna show you a bit about the world tonight. Give you a feel for the game itself. We're going to get into some of the mechanics and talk a little bit about, well, what you saw, who we are and what our goals are. So I want to start there with our goals for Omens Rising. Omens Rising is a tabletop RPG that, like Leona had mentioned, is focused on creating a sense of belonging. It is focused on this concept of creating community within the party, community within the world. It is a post-apocalyptic world that is heavily influenced by Japanese RPG video games, as well as some anime and a variety of other influences that really touch on that mix of story and both personal for each character, as well as how it then ripples out into the world around it. And our goal is to help you all have memorable experiences at your table. Tables that are hopefully as inclusive as we have tried to build our game. Tables that are as vulnerable and dramatic as you want them to be, that are as heroic and exciting as you want them to be. That's our goal. And we would like to get that story started here tonight. And Simon, let's see, can you flip over to the table view so we can show off some of the cards? Yeah, no problem. Oh yeah, no problem. Simon, who is Wandering DM, is our wonderful producer for the night, and they are working diligently on the captioning, and because of that, a slight delay. But we're going to dig into some of the card play. We're going to talk a little bit about the world itself. And where I would start is that this is a world of duality. There is the prime realm and there is the aethral realm. Wasa, who's here with us, is our project lead for the aethral side of that duality. Ryomasa, who you can find in chat, is our project lead for the prime side of that duality. And we are keeping that balance between them through the way that we play. It is a world of prophecy and a world of autonomy. Just because the stars made it so does not mean that one must walk that path. It is still your choice. And that's key to the stories that'll be told, is those choices that each character makes. And that begins, as Leona had pointed out, with the first card that's flipped during character creation. Oh yeah, there's more of our team in chat. So many of them. Chantel and Kayla, thank you all for coming out. I see some of the people who have playtested for us in character creation are also here. Thank you for coming out. You guys are amazing supporters, and we appreciate you. Because of this element of prophecy, there are signs and sigils. Some of them are written in the stars. Where you see where Fennicini's camera would be, behind it is a constellation. The stars are the window into the aether. The night sky is the window into the aether, and the stars are the language in which it uses to connect to all things. Because the aether is the story, or is the power behind all things. It is the power of stars as well. Like if you get into physics, that's what they call it. There are actually some science people that take offense to aether being called magic because it is the energy of stars, and I say it's both. And that's what I tell people. And in our world, it is both. It is the power that fuels the stars. It is the power that fuels our magic. And through that, you get signs and sigils, which when we get up to the table view, you'll see one of our sigils. And it was created by at God of Iron Art on Twitter. You can follow him there. His name is Obatian. He is an amazing artist, one of our team. And it is his take on a sigil of wholeness, a sigil of well-being, a sigil of the entire person. And it's going to be on that concept that we begin our conversations. Who are these characters and the whole people in which they are. So I'm going to start with our mechanic, and I'm going to start by dealing the cards to our players. And now every player, including the GM, or who we like to sometimes call the Oracle of the game, each player and the GM will get 2 cards in their hand and that they hold. Think of it in a sense like Texas Hold'em. You've got 2 that you keep on you, and then others that you'll play off of. And these 2 cards that you have are going to be cards that you will use with the various suits. And so in cartomancy divination, when it comes to playing cards, which is in many ways similar to tarot, but different, each suit represents one of the 4 elements of the world and one of the 4 elements of the self. Clubs being fire and the ethereal self, sometimes called the soul or the spirit by different cultures. Hearts represent water and the emotional self. Spades, air, and the mental self. Diamonds, the land, and the physical self. So each character has 12 aptitudes instead of skills. We use aptitudes because they are ways in which to interact with the world instead of specific honed skills that someone might use. This is more about an approach to interacting with the world. And with each aptitude, you will use one part of yourself, either clubs, hearts, spades, or diamonds, and that aptitude. Each aptitude has a different rank, as you can see on the screen. And you will add basically your base rate of the card to your base rating. And the values start at 2 through 10, then 11, 12, and 13 for the face cards, 14 for an ace, it is not a 1, and then 15 for the jokers, who are also considered to be the fates. And there is a difference between the red joker and the black joker, or big joker and little joker, as it used to be printed. When the little joker, it'd be a smaller image with all of like the copyright information on the card. That's where that comes from. So now we have a basic idea of what we're doing. And we'll get into the actual like gameplay when we get there. So let's start with introducing who we're playing tonight. And we're going to go in reverse order. So I'm going to start with Amr and introduce us to...
Oh, who said you could do that?
Who is Hyatt?
Yeah, it's great. Hi, so I'll be playing Hyatt tonight. Okay, cool. My character, she didn't. For a second, it looked like it had, but it hadn't. So we're good. Hyatt is a healer from the culture that I'm writing that is as of yet unnamed. But basically, they are a culture that is known for their ability as healers. The way they do it is by transferring energy from one living thing to another, usually from themselves, or more often than not, the henna tattoos they have all over their body, where they use the plant matter to give life to other beings and to help heal them. And so, yeah, what else would you like to know in these intros?
No, I mean that whatever it is that makes your character who they are, I think you did a great job. So let's go to Leona. Tell us about Robin.
Tonight I will be playing Robin. She is our airship captain. Robin comes from the culture that I am writing, which is the Pragati or progress half of the twin cultures. The Pragati culture is very interested in technology and finding ways of constantly improving upon themselves, finding more efficient technology that doesn't require as much power or use up as much of the ether and things like that. They are very interested in learning and growth and tinkering. Their twin culture is a little bit more nomadic, and there's actually a fair bit of exchange between the two cultures. The Bargathi culture, they encourage their children as they grow to go and explore the Shanti culture, and the Shanti culture encourages their children to come and visit the Bargathi culture. And so there's a frequent exchange between these two halves of this island. Robin is slightly unusual in that even though she is from the Bargathi culture, which is a little bit more rooted in cities rather than nomadic life, she has the wanderlust of the Shanti culture, and that is what drew her to the airships in the first place. And she uses the ether technology that she has access to fly around the world and explore, really.
Wonderful. Thank you for that introduction to Robin. Jamar, tell us about your character.
So I will be playing Etsuki. I will even mess this up. I will be playing Etsuki, who is a member of the Kisnoek, also known as colloquially as the witches, that live in a deeply, deeply, deeply haunted, for lack of a better term, forest. They are the direct descendants of a magical empire that lived in that forest. And they're basically the same as opposed to many of the other cultures within the world. They're not very different from how they used to be. And in a lot of ways, they are very stagnant in their practice of magic, in that it has to be magic. They're almost technophobic. But this has garnered them a more intimate understanding of the Aether, as well as the natural world as the Aether creates it. And in that, they feel they are like inheritors of the will of the Aether itself. So they're real bougie. That said, Etsuki kind of doesn't fit the mold completely. While he's very much a person of this culture. He's very into the idea of like seeing new things, and one of the first people to ever leave the forest in well over 100 years and some change, to chart out a new beginning for the people.
Thank you, Jamar. And that leaves us with Wasa. Tell us about the character you're playing.
I am playing a culture that I did not write. I'm the Aether Tech person in this group, but I am playing Chantel's Silent Walkers, which is a wonderful culture. Again, another nomadic culture. And I am playing Flicker, or Flick to everyone here, who is someone whose journey started with an unexpected spark of meeting an individual that allowed them to realize that through their wanderings, they needed to, in a way, change their direction. They began to wander the world and explore the world to understand it more. Flick is someone who is quite in tune with the Aether, and they also are somewhat of the healer variety, having a sort of long line of family members, etc., who are of the horticulture, like plant-related studies, as well as healing. So that is something that is very deeply rooted, no pun intended, of their person. And hopefully that is something that will be helpful and something to share with this wonderful group. So that's just a little bit about them, playing the Silent Walkers, and we are all on this wonderful journey together with them.
Excellent. So, That brings us and segues us over to where are we? We find our intrepid adventurers or travelers, as it may be, on board an airship. This airship is captained by one Robin, played by Leona, and is of a design and of a make that is well over 100 years old. It predates the cataclysmic event, which has been currently in workshop as the Great Decimation. And this is important because during that event, think of like magical climate change. You have tsunamis that become sentient and chase things they want to destroy rather than just crashing against the shore. You have hail that falls from the sky and, much like a Looney Tunes commercial, might change mass and shape and form and element until it lands either inertly or devastatingly on the ground. You have mountains shooting up through parts of the world that never existed before, continents that have sunk into the ocean, leaving only an island or chain of islands above sea level. In fact, you have one continent that was ripped from the prime, shoved into the aether, and then back out again in a different place. No one knows if anyone survived. Some would say they brought it upon themselves as they were, shall we say, greedy for magical power. They consolidated as much of the magic as they could get their hands on into their culture, into their part of the world. And for lack of a better term, overloaded the grid of ley lines that keep the aether flowing in the prime and access to it. They blew a hole between the two worlds and caused all kinds of destruction. That leaves us with cultures that went through a long period of mourning and survival, and are now, as the aether storms have waned, moving into a period of thriving again, relearning who they are, reopening trade routes, exploring to see who survived and who did not, what sacred places might still exist for their culture, what places may have been erased permanently. And on this trip, at the direction of our captain, they are headed to a village tucked away in a valley, cut off from many others for over a century. It's a village of people who used to proudly roam. They are a people of nomads, the silent walkers, who stay to their territory but move from one part of the year to another, one planting season to another, across wherever it is that they call home. And unfortunately, this village did not, as they were trapped by the aether storms in this valley, and then once the storm subsided, trapped by fear. This is a mission of humanitarian aid, a mission of exploration, a mission that may cause some to question who they are. Captain, oh Captain, where is the bird of paradise at this point in its travels?
Good question. The bird of paradise is about a day away from the village, currently over the ocean. There's coastline nearby, but still quite distant. You can tell that we're getting close, though. And it is the weather is calm and peaceful today, so it should be smooth flying and reaching our destination sooner than anticipated.
Excellent. And where do we find Captain Robin?
Robin can most commonly be found at the helm of her ship. She is a crew of one traditionally, though everyone who comes on board is always welcome to help out wherever they feel most comfortable. And so she is probably standing on the bridge of her ship, steering, making sure that everything is on course and smooth.
Excellent. Just so we can model some of the some of the mechanics for the audience, let's go ahead and have Robin, who's been successfully navigating this trip without much, if any, difficulty to date, do a navigation check to make sure that we arrive early as weather permits, but still on course.
Mm-hmm.
So to navigate this world, which of Robin's aptitudes would she rely on most?
I'm going to say explorer.
Okay. So explorer, what is your rank in explorer?
I am a rank 3.
Rank 3. So that is base rating of 9.
Mm-hmm.
So, and which part of Robin's self? Well, actually, before that, I want you to draw 2 cards.
Okay.
So what we do is we start by describing the action. We then have the player determine which of their aptitudes they're going to use to complete that action, or whatever the case may be. And then they will draw 2 additional cards. And from those 4, they will choose 1 to play and 1 to essentially discard back into the deck. And they will keep 2 at all times. So of the 4 that you have, Leona, which would you like to play?
Let's see here.
And which part of self are you going to use?
I'm thinking I don't have any spades, which would be my preferred one because that's mental.
You can play offsuit for 1 point if you wish, and that would put you at a 10. Remembering mechanic-wise, a 6 is considered mundane or routine for your threshold of success. A 10 would be something that requires a bit more effort, but is not something that, as a skilled person, you would have to exert effort for. And that would meet the next threshold. So you could meet that threshold if we're thinking metagaming-wise rather than narratively, by playing offsuit. Mm-hmm. Or you can look at the cards in your hand, which I know that you were just about to do, and see if there's another part of Robin that she would rely on in order to help navigate this journey.
Diamonds, I think, would work.
Okay.
Diamonds relate to the land and the physical, and I'm going to take that a little bit literally in the sense that because Robin is looking for land, and she kind of knows which way she's going, she's kind of able to use those elements.
So leaning on her physical ability to pilot the ship, and being able to understand the land beneath as she looks out over the horizon. What are you going to play?
I'm going to play the 3 of diamonds.
Okay. Oh, and I'm on the wrong layer. so I can't see it. There we go. So we have the 3 of diamonds, and I'm going to increase that size just a little bit for people to see it a little better. And it's not appearing on the screen. There we go. So describe how, so this is the next step. Now that you've declared how you're going to go about it and the way in which you plan on using your sense of self, describe that action. What does it look like as we're watching Leona navigate the sky with diamonds?
I think you can see Robin will likely kind of pull out her spyglass and take a look through it and kind of peer at the distance. You'll see her kind of look up at the sky as if she's kind of gauging the different, using the different elements of the earth to kind of gauge where she's at, where her trajectory is, and then course correcting as needed. So you see her grab hold of the wheel of the ship, and she'll turn it slightly to adjust. And I think that's what she would do.
Excellent. So, are you using your spyglass in the way that you might for your significant item?
Good question. I don't think so. I think for her spyglass is very grounding. At the moment, she's mostly using it for practical reasons to kind of just be like making sure I know where I'm going.
The reason that I asked that to the audience, we have in this game what are called significant items. Instead of tracking major inventory, we are tracking 2 items of significance to the character, one that is decided during character creation, and one that ends up being found, discovered, or pursued during the game itself. And then the third one of them is one that's practical to the adventure at hand. So the reason I asked that is the mechanic for a significant item is that if it's used in a specific scenario with a specific aptitude as defined by the player, they can gain a +1. And Robin's is designed to work with Explorer when looking out into the distance to guide herself or her ship or things of that. So that's why I asked if it was being employed that way, if it made sense for the story. She said not. If it had, it would gain a +1 to what was going on. But at this rate, Robin has still reached a 12 total. 9 is her base rating, plus the 3, it equals a 12. And with that, she beats the threshold. The threshold would have been 10. It was something that would take some effort, but not necessarily much. So, and it's because it is such a beautiful day out, but it is also a place that she has not yet been to. Otherwise, it would have been a 6. So, yes, no inventory besides significant items. So in this case, Robin, you've successfully navigated or kept the ship on course. And I'd like for you to talk about what significant item your character has brought for this particular adventure. What is it that you pre-planned to help succeed in your humanitarian mission to this village?
And Wasa, feel free to jump in here a little bit because I'm still a little bit vague on the details of Aether Tech and what it might look like. But Robin has brought from home, from the Burgundy culture, she has brought Aether Tech that is meant to help with the actual farming that is occurring in this village. She's heard that the crops themselves are struggling. And so she has brought all these pieces of technology that are kind of very carefully packaged up in almost like a hard casing, like a hard, not a briefcase, but like a hard casing that kind of opens up like a clamshell. And she's got this kind of all stored in the cargo hold, and she's got quite a few pieces. Like it's enough to sustain multiple farms, she hopes, and
Good.
help them grow their crops.
Excellent. So farm implements, but they're tech-based.
Mhm.
So Wasa, I'm going to pass it off to you. Tell us a little bit about Aether Tech in the world of Omens Rising and what some of those farm implements might look like, since that is your area of the project.
Sweet. So Aether Tech is essentially equipment, tools, inventions, those sorts of things that have a sort of connection to the Aether. So the realm of Aether, which is where, you know, our magic or our science, our energies sort of society, exist in a way. In terms of Aether Tech, those can be, you know, things that are a little bit more in tune to what you would associate with like electricity and things like that. But it may also be things that are a little bit more natural in a sense. So, for example, if you think of like a phone being a little bit more high tech in a sense, or if you think about in terms of farming or things like a plow or something to till, that is still a form of technology, but there might be something that is imbued within it or something that is integrated into the system that assists in making it just a little bit more easier, that assists in sort of inviting the Aether or the energy to bond with it in a sense. And that bond creates sort of those benefits that may exist to make things better. So, for example, as we said with Robin's tools, you have Aether Tech that has a specific housing in it to protect it. But what this is the Aether Tech is associated with creating an abundance, something that will grow. So there may be aspects of it using specific materials like metals or more natural materials that are more in line with the world and the earth that invite, as I said, the Aether. What I'm thinking of is, Leona, you said that it's to help sort of farm, correct?
Yes.
Yes. There is, I'm sort of just thinking about like, you know, plowing and tilling and those sorts of things and assisting in planting, etc. So perhaps it is something that assists in, you know, planting the seeds, etc. But it might actually assist in encouraging growth, encouraging the nutrition to come and like, you know, go towards those specific areas. So similar to like a magnet in a way, but this is more so for those elements that will draw in the nutrition to encourage growth. It's mostly what I'm thinking when it comes to, you know, sort of assisting with the plants and things like that. Just very simple materials, as well as because it is the Silent Walker. So I imagine that we have this idea that the materials, like, you know, the tools, etc., have to be mobile. So I think that they're quite small and they're quite easy to use in a way. You're not going to have, you know, a giant tractor or anything like that. You're going to have shovels and things like that that have like, you know, a small mechanism that assists, that are quick and easy and easy to carry, etc. So that's what I'm thinking.
I love it.
Excellent. Now, at this point, what would have happened is Leona, which Leona already did, would discard the card she no longer wishes to keep for Robin of the two, or of the three that are there, leaving two in her hand. And both the card played and the card discarded would be reshuffled into the deck. So if you play a really good card, it doesn't go to the bottom and you're basically never going to see it again all game. You shuffle it back in to give every card an equal opportunity percentage-wise to appear again. So we've completed that while during Wass's description, and let's just build off of that. Tell us about Flicker. Where can we find Flicker on the ship right now, and what might they be doing?
So Flicker is someone that, in terms of the premise of this adventure as such, someone who seems to be there just at the right time. So that is sort of like who they are as a person. I believe that with the knowledge of where they are going, being a silent walker and understanding or sensing that this isn't quite right, that this isn't how the silent walkers are often, and that there is something wrong. There is perhaps that moment where they're taking that moment to understand and to sort of like center themselves and calm themselves and think about what they will do once they land. I think Flicker will be in sort of that botany lab greenhouse, perhaps tending to some of the small the plants that they have growing that are, have germinated, etc. That is probably where they are, and that's probably what they are doing. Oh, Chris.
Excellent. So now here, I know that I gave Leona, or kind of encourage Leona to make a check. While unlike other games where people will make a check for just about anything, in Omens Rising, our number one rule is, does it move the narrative forward? So what I'm going to do here instead, I did that before just to kind of give you an idea of what the mechanics look like for basic checks, or pulls is what we call them, when you're going to pull cards and play. But in this case, I am actually directing it to the player to make sure I preserve that level of autonomy. And I'm like, Wassa, is there something that you would like to do to move the narrative forward with this description and this particular introduction? Or was this simply scene? It was just setting the scene for us. Or not scene, setting. This is setting up what to expect on the ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this would be, we are traveling, we have a day's worth of travel. This would be something that is seen, tending to the sort of the garden in a way.
Gotcha.
And also associated with their significant item to bring along with the adventure is where Robin has the tools to assist in the growth of these plants. Flicker has sort of like super seeds, kind of like, those drought tolerant kind of seeds, etc., to weather.
Excellent. So what kind of plant or plants are you thinking? Are we thinking like a grain? Are we talking something that's fruit bearing versus seed bearing?
I am thinking that this is something that is a grain. Okay.
Colloquially, one of them, anyways, if you have multiples, we can have multiples, but one of them is what colloquially is called winter wheat. It is a hardy grain that can grow in a multitude of zones and can take freezes fairly well. Not perfectly so, but is also drought tolerant, and the leftover material, because it's a hardy plant, is fibrous enough that it could be repurposed in a variety of ways. Was that the primary one that you're bringing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. That works for me. And let's move on to Hyatt. Where are we finding Hyatt? Because I have a feeling I know where Etsuki is.
Oh?
Yeah, so where on the ship might Hyatt be?
Well, if there's nothing that is in particular need of help, there you can probably generally find them chilling in. Does the ship have? There's a layout. Yes. Is there a common area, like a common seating area in the ship? Right. So it's probably just sitting there, biding their time.
Okay. Are they doing anything in particular while they bide their time? Is there some sort of a way that they like to spend their time, their downtime?
I imagine they're probably reading whatever book they picked up from the last stop.
Excellent. So let's see. And what are they bringing with them as their significant item for this particular adventure?
Their significant item is their mortar and pestle.
No, not their personal one, the adventure-based one. What are they bringing to drop off or to aid in this humanitarian effort?
Okay.
Are there specific healing plants?
I think what they've brought with them. We know that the soil has been having trouble growing things in the village we're heading towards.
Yes.
And so I think brought some seed, just a mixed bag of some, like, or a mixed set of bags of seeds, some soil. Problem with the ground is, but to at least help aid that process.
Okay. So one more time for me to make sure I have it correct on I'm making notes of each of these myself.
Mixed bag of seeds and soil to help rehabilitate the earth there.
Okay. Is it from anywhere in particular, or is it from a variety of the places in Hyatt's travels?
I think from everywhere. Some of them were some seeds that they already had on her before this particular adventure came up. Some of them were ones she picked up once she heard about this destination and started collecting them at ports.
Excellent, excellent. So as a recap, because there was a question in chat about what is this mission, it is a village that is in need of humanitarian aid. The soil seems to not grow. Well, it does. The plants that are planted, the agriculture there does not bear fruit or very little fruit. It also, there have been unexplained explosions that have occurred in the last few months. Some of them have been related to significant infrastructure. Some of them have just been in open areas. Most of them have not been fatal. For whatever reason, they seem to destroy things more than they destroy people. And last but not least, there are rumors that the people living there are prone to hearing voices. So that's kind of what they're running into. Thank you for asking that question. So that brings us to Etsuki. Etsuki, who's on one of their first adventures, or trips, I shouldn't say, maybe their first adventure, but one of their first trips outside of their home forest. Where do we find Etsuki?
As far as the ship goes, Etsuki has been spending a lot of time hiding from all the other people, mostly because they find other people to be very overstimulating as far as like the newness of them, and they kind of haven't gotten used to it yet. So at the moment, if there is an engine room or an engine-like room where the core or this what would be considered the center of the ship is?
Yes, there is. Well, the core, the engine room is not actually in the center. It is near the stern.
The spiritual center.
Yes, there you go. But there is an engine room. This ship, just so you all know, is with its design. It is called the Bird of Paradise. It is an enclosed ship where its normal deck would be. It has this elaborate like dome, glass dome that goes over it. And there are glass panels weaved together with metal to keep or braced in metal that can open and close. Think of like stadiums that have retractable domes. It also has wings instead of sails, and it has a propeller at the back. It is inspired by the hummingbird in nature. And so that's kind of the vibe that you get from this ship. You also would, someone who is just gazing upon it might see various windows in different places that grab and refract the light in where the botany, where Flickr is, with all of the botanical gardens. There is a very large crystalline window that is known to some who are of that persuasion. These glass panels or windows are grown crystals, and because they're grown, they are not shaped in your normal circles or ovals or squares, because to cut them down would be to degrade their strength, and it would interrupt the crystalline structure that allows it to be resistant to any form of collision and pressure. So imagine kind of like puddles of water in their random shape across different parts of the ship, as well as the way the dome is constructed. So toward the back of it is where you find the engine room, and you find Etsky. There is a sizable Aether engine there that has a variety of technological bits that you're not familiar with. The whole thing itself seems to be made of orichalcum, which is not foreign to Etsky. Orichalcum is a mortal created blessed metal that can house Aether and contain Aether in the prime. And so it's oftentimes found in a lot of the important parts of larger Aether Tech. It's also found in what we might call the wiring or infrastructure of the smaller pieces as well. You've seen it used with engines that run on Aether, but you've never seen it used to this extent. It feels a little bit gaudy and a little bit extravagant.
Yeah, he spends a lot of time just looking at it like he's waiting for it to do something. And spends a lot of time there because there's not a whole lot of people in the engine room. And technology,
not unless there's a problem.
Yeah. And he's kind of like hoping he can like use it as a place to like talk to the ship to make himself more comfortable with being on it.
Okay.
And so in the time that he's been there, he's a little bit more chill about it now, and he's actually in the process of making these shards of glass made from glass back home, but he has to cast a ritual on them to make them kind of like omen centers, like
Okay.
centers,
Okay.
because he thinks that an omen might be the problem. And so it's kind of like a tool other people can use to kind of like track one.
Gotcha.
They have to.
And just a point of clarification, we were playing around with names and such. And at first, in our first draft of what are monsters in this world, we referred to them as omens. But actually, the player characters are omens because they are the prophecies come to life. So we're defaulting back to just monster at this point, which interesting. Yeah. Interestingly enough, omen and monster have the same root word. They both come from the same, etymologically speaking, from the same root word. So there is some overlap there anyway.
And there's a lot that I can't say that make me think things just now.
So, yeah, there's a fine line between whether or not following your prophecy, you are an omen or a monster. So yes, so these are crystals being cast over to try and sense for the presence of monsters in the area, and which is really an ethereal disturbance in many ways. For our audience, monsters in this world are creations that have manifested based on things that have occurred. So your folk tales about the bogeyman, the more that tale is told and the more that tale is believed, it becomes real. And now you do have a bogeyman. If you have some sort of really strong fear of something as a culture or as a group, you might manifest a monster that comes from that fear, that embodies that fear. And so what you'll find is quite literally in Omens Rising, monsters are the creations of people. So that's why it's aether sensing. They are manifestations of ethereal power that have been brought to this world.
And for
by people.
Oh yes, by people. And for witches, that's something that they can do more, not naturally. It's an effort, but it is something that they do as a culture. But obviously, he doesn't really think everyone else can do that. He is like, they probably can't do this. And so he's making kind of seeing eye monocles for everyone else.
Oh, nice.
They're like shards of glass you hold up to your eye to like kind of look and kind of see the flow of like omens, monsters specifically. So it has to be like fully formed and doing things.
Gotcha.
Because there's already plenty of food, and any amount of like food care or growth, he can try to stimulate it with magic, which he doesn't need things for.
Yeah, no, and that sounds excellent. So what aptitude is Etsky going to rely on in order to activate these lenses or monocles?
I think he'll just use ethereal because it makes the most sense. I thought about using explorer because it is for finding something, but because it's an aether something, I think ethereal is the way to go here. So I will just draw 2 more of these. And
all right. And so what act are they doing? We're using ethereal or aetheral as the aptitude, which is a deep connection to the aetheral realm that provides insight into unperceived aspects or ideas, or aspects of ideas, situations, and or beliefs. So this falls right into that very well. What does this act look like? Is it what part of self? Are you going to tap into the ethereal self, or are you using this more intellectually speaking?
I think emotionally? Because he doesn't know, he would usually use in spellcasting, he would usually use his ethereal self for this kind of thing. That's the kind of the part of him that he's most in tune with. But because he's doing this for other people, he has to think about it. So I will be using the spades, the mental self.
Okay. And go ahead and play a spade for the mental self.
I'm going to play the 8 of. Oh, hold on, where'd it go? The 8 of spades.
Excellent. So we have the 8 of spades. I'm going to blow it up a little bit.
There we go.
And what is your base rank for, or your rank for
Aether?
Yeah.
I'm rank 3.
Rank 3. So that's going to be a good. That's a 9 plus an 8. That's a 17. And for this task, this being one, is this something that is commonly done within your culture? Is this something that Etsuki has known for a while?
It is. He's kind of like making something from something that he knows well. So like the idea of sensing them out is something that they do pretty often because they have to. Especially like he has a little bit of the like guard training because he was supposed to go out in the world, but he doesn't know how to use this for other people, and he's kind of like trying to make that idea tangible into a tangible thing.
Gotcha.
And because of that, he kind of like is the kind of sigils that he would just draw in the air. He is like kind of using is there soot in the engine or dirt?
No, actually, it's very clean.
Damn it, it's clean.
And it hums very lightly.
Very lightly. Yes, he'll use the hum of the engine and kind of use those vibrations to make the sigils.
Okay.
While he's holding the glasses.
Love it.
That way, it kind of like it's getting a baseline, and because everyone's on the ship, that baseline is kind of common between them. Of the ship's like
good
resonance.
So when it comes to casting magic in Omens Rising, there are multiple steps. The first one is what you see here. We have the pulling of the energy, trying to find the right ethereal energy in order to infuse into the item or whatever, or pull across a conduit is what we call it. That is the path in which that energy is transferred. Think of it like electricity, that same kind of way. It is your conduit, and how much electricity it can hold depends on how well that conduit basically conducts. So we have a 17 for that, and that exceeds our threshold for something challenging because there are unknown aspects to this. So you have successfully reached what you need in order to pull enough energy to do what you're asking for. The next step is to make sure that the conduits can hold it. So we're going to pull a card, or you'll discard one card and down back to 2.
Do I just
I put a little spot on the roll 20 for discard. If you see it.
Oh, there it is. I see it there.
To the side. Thank you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to you're going to draw. Well, I'm going to recall the cards that we have there. So we're going to remember that 8 of spades and that we were successful. We're going to recall the cards and we're going to shuffle them back in. And then you're going to draw 2 more. And now you're going to tell us about these crystal lenses.
They are so the glass is he's kind of a tchotchke keeper, and something that he kept with him for kind of this purpose is pieces of glass made from it's like a dark glass because it's in combination with some of the like dark soot sand from the volcano that his forest is near. And so they are like man-made pieces of glass. They're like magically crafted, but they are pieces of glass.
Okay. And which, I guess in this case, element of the glass itself are you going to rely on to for it to hold this energy?
For this, I'm focusing on the volcanic aspect of it.
So the physical aspect?
Volcanic / the earthen aspect, like the part that is fertile, and like inside of this glass is like fertile soot.
Okay.
And because we're going to somewhere that's like not that, he thinks it'll kind of like balance it out and finding
like that
kind of connection or lack of connection, as it were. And so this is a kind of a primal thing. He's relying on the actual physical essence of the prime to kind of hold onto this.
Gotcha. So I'm assuming diamonds with that description. All right. So let's go ahead and play your diamond.
Boop.
And so we're still using Aetherol here, but now we're using diamonds in this check. And so your base is 9, but now you have a king, which is a 13. And that gives us I'm doing math really fast. Sorry, a 22. And from that, we're going to determine the success of this. Now, these are naturally occurring and then magically, I guess, modifying.
Yes.
And because of that, it's going to be a base of 10. So 10 is not terribly difficult, but at the same time, it is a common practice. So you have a high quality material, making this pretty easy. And that gives you what's called a critical success, because you've more than doubled your threshold for what you're trying to do. And anytime that you will double your threshold, you will go to your character sheet, and we'll talk more about character sheets in a later session, and you will click on the suit of the card you played when you got a critical success for that aptitude. So go to the Aetherol line on your character sheet and click on diamonds to fill it in.
It is done.
For the audience, how you level in this game is you increase your aptitudes by using them. And either by achieving a critical success or a critical failure, you will then mark out clubs, hearts, spades, diamonds based on the cards you play. And once you have used all 4 aspects of the world or of the self in order to either push past your boundaries, critical success, or learn from errors, critical failure, you will level up. And so this is Etsky at this point is 1/4 of the way toward leveling Aetherol from a 3rd rank or rank of good to a rank of great and increasing the base rating. So that is kind of our leveling mechanic in Omens Rising. Now, let's go ahead and just to speed this up, and then we're going to take a break, and we'll be back after that. Is we're going to do the third and fourth aspects. The first one, or go ahead and discard a card for me.
Great. I knew that. I'm going to throw out this one. We don't need it.
Okay, and I'm going to recall those, shuffle them back in, and now go ahead and draw 2 more cards, and we're going to talk about the effect that's happening here. So now you're trying to, we talked about what the effect was. It's already been described. So what aspect of self, or not of self, of the world or self are you relying on? Is this ethereal, emotional, mental, physical? Is it connected to an element?
For the effect?
Yes.
I think for this is definitely an ethereal thing, because this is to perceive into the ethereal, like kind of like energy.
Okay. So what card would you like to play for that?
This one.
Okay, so we have a 6 of clubs mixed with your 9. Oops,
Right there.
I'm having trouble moving things right now. Okay, so 6 of clubs mixed with the 9 base rating, that is a 13. And what we're going to do with this piece is it's going to talk about the type of effect that can happen. So instead of it being something about success or failure, this tells you the threshold of what you'll be able to successfully do. So with our monsters, each of them have a different rank. And we'll get into when we actually use them, how this effect comes in. But I'm assuming that, or what I want you to write down or make a note of is that you have, I'm assuming you're making 1 lens for every person in the party. So 5 of them.
Yes.
Okay. And this is the significant item that you're bringing for everyone on how to scan for monsters, right?
Yes.
So you have 5 of these lenses that have a 13 success rating. Okay.
Noted.
And that is your significant item for the adventure. Now, the last step in magic is to choose whether or not you're going to take the time and effort to balance the aetherial energies, or if you will let the world choose how to balance itself.
Because that's probably what got us in here in the first place, I'm going to choose myself.
You're gonna balance the energies. So let's go.
Choices
ahead.
right now are not that great.
Yep. You're gonna draw draw 2 cards. And then describe to us what it is that you're doing to give back Aether and balance the energy that you pulled.
Let's see. What are my options here?
Now, it could be a sacrifice of some sort that's given. It could be that it taxes you. Think of like games that have mechanics of drain.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a variety of different ways that you want to go about that.
I think for this, it'll make it's kind of a different sense for him in that, like, him using magic's pretty normal and comfortable, but because of that, he becomes worse at interacting with people.
Okay.
Like, he can't even glean other people's emotions, and being around them makes him panic.
So it's a form of drain, an emotional drain on him in this case. Okay. So now remember, 13 was your success rating on the effect. So it kind of gives you an idea, metagaming wise, what you're going to need to hit to make sure that it hit or exceed to balance it.
And we're still using the
aetherial.
Right. I will use. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll make a perfect balance. I'll use this.
Okay.
And throw that there.
Okay. So by using the 6 of hearts with the 9 that you have already for your base rating, that puts you at a 15, which is slightly over, but really close. And it's a really good balance. So you're a little bit more taxed by this than you might have been at other times when you've done it before. But there's a lot of unknowns here that you've been accounting for. You've got a variety of different factors that have played in. So
all kinds of places.
Yeah. So like, you're not too surprised by the fact that it's a little bit more draining than what you're used to seeing. Now, so what you're going to do is, instead of health points, we have connections to the 6 parts of your character, which comes from the spread itself, the 6 different connections that you develop in your character creation. So of them, I want you to choose one and mark it as a -1 for now. which is something that needs maintenance. And we'll talk about it. You can pick it later. We're going to talk about it next session because I don't want to get into that mechanic yet in this session. Or if not next session, we'll briefly talk about it. But for now, I just want you to mark one of those at a -1. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And we can always adjust it to a different one if it makes more sense when we're talking. Okay?
Yeah.
So that is the basics of ritual magic in Omens Rising. When you cast a spell, you basically take 3 to 4 turns in order to do that. You first have to pull the energy from the Aether. You then have to channel it through your conduit successfully. And then you create the effect. The fourth one that is optional, you can choose to let the world rebalance itself, but that kind of gives the GM their ability to have some sort of, think of it like a system where you can give the GM an opportunity to do something negative as a reaction by pushing oneself. A number of systems have those kinds of things in. That's where you have this. I mean, it is optional to the player, though. Like many of them are. And that's how you would do that. So that's that piece. So we're now going to take a 5 to 10 minute break. And when we come back, what I'd like to do is I'd like to open it up for questions to our audience and to our players. And we're going to talk about the things that we've shown off, the things that we liked, the things that we didn't like, what we might reconsider and take back to the drawing board and go from there.
Can't show my little hands. But yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for sticking around. It's time for our Q&A portion of our alpha playtests. And we had a couple that came in already, so I think we're going to start with those that are in chat that people did not want to forget. So I'm going to start with Godless Lawyer's question about... I love the leveling system, but is there any mechanic to discourage players from gaming skill checks or trying to call skill checks for minor tasks so as to easily crit on those tasks, or attempting impossible feats for the sole purpose of generating a crit fail? I'm going to actually pass this one off to Amber, who was one of the people that helped develop our safeguard against this.
I will probably bounce it back to you in a second because you know the details, but I can start us off, which is, so as Chris mentioned at the start, I did pretty much a lot of math at the start, and I got more that I'm going to do. I'm sure there will probably be something random that comes up at some point or another. But basically, to figure out thresholds for what your likelihoods of getting different successes with different bonuses, and that's how we settled with the specific numbers we've got. But to that end, we've established a threshold for impossible tasks and simple tasks. If chances of failure does not exist, it's a simple task. If chances of success is nigh irrelevant, it's an impossible task. And so those tasks are just not things you can attempt. Simple tasks, you do them. They get done. Mm-hmm. Like Chris said, we only do things if there is a narratively interesting result. And on the flip side, with impossible tasks, you kind of just fail them if you are foolish enough to attempt them anyways, without being a mechanical failure. Does that seem mostly accurate?
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely correct. So I lovingly call it the mundane task rule for the simple ones. If it's something that you can do without thinking about it too much, there's no reason you're not exerting effort. If you choose to, it'd be like, Tony Hawk is not going to level up by doing an ollie off of a curb, because Tony Hawk is amazing with a skateboard, even at his current age. So you can't... Tony Hawk can't level up off that stuff. He could still make it much fancier than anybody else, potentially, right? And that's a different kind of circumstance. And I use Tony Hawk because he's hilarious on Twitter when he talks about the people that don't recognize who he is. If you're not old enough or don't care about skateboarding, he's or video games. He's one of the greatest skateboarders of all time. And he looks like an average dude. And people routinely just will tell him, hey, do you know that you kind of look like Tony Hawk? And like legitimately.
Or they'll be like, hey, your name's Anthony. Oh, you're a skateboarder, like Tony Hawk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yep. It's pretty funny. Anyway, then with impossible tasks, if it's something solely out of the realm of being able to succeed, then what we ask is, does it move the narrative forward? And if attempting it does not move the narrative forward, then there's no reason to reward it. So some impossible tasks, people, because they're playing their character, it's important for them to try anyway, and we don't want to penalize that. But at the same time, we don't want people gaming the system, because this game isn't about grinding things out. It's about telling important stories. And so that's in there. And this relates to the next question that was put out there. And that had to do with, what if your character doesn't learn from their mistakes? Would there be a skill that would be negatively impacted, like they become more hardened or something? So not learning from someone's mistakes is kind of, it's more about the consequences that they receive from it and whether or not they choose to fix that. And that comes down to two mechanics. One that I want to talk a little bit more about next week when we go over Etsky's Drain and what the -1 I mentioned does, and the connections to the 6 parts of people's origin spread, or their character creation spread. But basically, when you crit fail, you and the GM figure out how this failure moves the narrative forward. If you cannot see a reason for this narrative to move the character forward, find one. It's important. You can't just drop your sword and pick it back up and the next round stab somebody like many games, or drop your gun or it jams and next round you shoot somebody like many games do for crit failures. That's not how this game works. To have a crit failure, you would have to have something happen that is truly a failure, but moves the plot in such a way that there is that it makes it relevant to the story. Because failure without relevance should just be a mundane action that happens in the background. It's not a critical failure. It's just a, oops, I missed, and we move on. That's kind of where we put that threshold there. This also brings us up to consensual death. Characters do not die without player consent. And a lot of that has to do with, again, telling the story, but also think about the influences that we have. We have influences from different sorts of anime. We have influences from JRPGs. How many of those do you just respawn in? How many of those do you carry on, regardless of how bad things were? How many characters come back, from what everyone thought was dead and now, nope, they're alive again in anime, that kind of thing. Like, you have these moments where death matters and those deaths are permanent. But other ones, you're unconscious or something of that nature. You're not truly dead. And we really want to play into that, which is why that consent mechanic plays into that. And I bring that up only because a lot of times people associate crit failure with character death. So I'm anticipating another question that may come out of this. So that's kind of how that works. So the consequences, we're going to talk a little bit more about next week. And you would basically take an impairment, is what we call them, to one of your 6 connections. And it has a specific negative impact on how your character would interact with the world and to your pulls that you're doing. And until you restore that impairment, you are stuck with that minus. So if they don't choose to learn from it, that means they're going to play out that negative impact to that connection for a long period of time. And that's kind of how you would role play that in to the game itself. Does that answer your question?
By the way, I am extremely excited for that part because of the one I chose, which is I can't say, but you'll find out.
We'll talk about that.
All right.
What other
I can throw you questions if the chat doesn't have questions.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Is like, while we wait for chat to throw out some questions as they're thinking of them, players, what did you see? What did you like? What do we want to talk about?
I'm absolutely obsessed with the spectacles right now when you were talking about them. Not only Aether Tech, Wasa was like, oh my gosh, this is the best. The concepts that we can, introduce and interact with, as well as the elements and the chaos that may pursue, because it is a brittle material, will be interesting. So I'm excited to see what happens with those, and I really like the ritual. I thought that was a real good insight into what we did, what we do, and that there is effort involved in magic. It's not just done, we're all good, everything is a success. There is that balance that I think is important when it comes to this sort of game, what we're trying to do, and magic in itself. I love consequence in it, and I'm excited to see what happens with that and how that will affect not only Ets but everyone that is going to be using them and that is going to interact with that.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. We had a question come up that I do want to kind of jump over to because it's an important one.
Can I get this one actually?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm going to read it out for people that may not see it in chat.
Yes.
It's a comment / question talking about how it may get answered. The drain question might get answered, and we'll talk about it more next session as well. But I do want to touch on it tonight. But it felt to them like mechanizing neurodivergence, and they want to know, as someone who is autistic, how are we putting into place ways to handle it well? So first of all, I'm going to turn over to Jamar, and I want Jamar to talk about why you chose that particular description for the drain in which Etsky is taking on.
So full disclosure, and it's not really a disclosure, I'm not hiding it at all. I am also autistic. And so when I was making the character, I did it on purpose. And one thing that I've always found very enlightening for me as in my experience, but also something that is interesting and something I connect to in characters is when they have a hyper focus. And it's something that is important to the world in these retellings of fantasy or something. And so for Etz, his culture is very magical, yes, but he has a magical prophecy. And in a lot of ways, he is more focused on the Aether than the Prime Realm completely. He almost has a kind of disconnect with a lot of the Prime Realm. I didn't really get to talk about his personal item, but he has an item that helps him with talking to other people. He just doesn't really spend a whole lot of time thinking about that kind of thing, interacting with people. He does his own thing. He appreciates when other people let him do his own thing. And so the mechanic that I was doing was more just for me because it's, again, narrative. The narrative I'm putting on is that this is an autistic coded character. And for me, I know that when I'm doing things, even as things that excite me, especially things for other people, I get really tired and I don't want to be around people after that. Mm-hmm. And so it'll come up when we do the next session, how that'll play out and what the detriment in that is. But it's not always getting tired of people was a character choice that I made personally. It is not really part of the game per se. It's something you could do, but because I was using the heart card and it was something I knew the character would do, that is a choice I made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and perfect. And that's the kind of segue I wanted. I wanted to start with the player's decision and talk about how it fits into the role play of the game and the choices made by the player there. And then I'm gonna talk about the game itself and kind of how we've set this up. So we do have session 0 as part of our book as well. There will be your basics on your, soft limits, hard limits. There's going to be, or lines and veils, whatever you call them. There's an actual activity done in it, but another part of it is the guidance. This game is about belonging. This game is about feeling included. And so bringing your whole self to the table, if you choose to, needs to be able to have a place there. And because this is authentic to Jamar and to who Jamar is, and he wanted to share that, we have space for that. However, there is also going to be clear guidance about how not to misrepresent. We're going through with our cultures and with the game itself, multiple rounds of consulting when it comes to disability, when it comes to neurodivergence, when it comes to gender identity and sexuality, when it comes to cultural aspects, real world analogs. And also when it comes to how you play the game, to get some people who have played a lot of different games and take a look at it and be able to kind of look for exploitation. I have a couple of people in mind that I know love to try and break down and look for holes in games, and every game will have them. It's not about getting rid of all the holes. It's about compensating for them and warning people where those pitfalls may lie so they can avoid them. Because we're not perfect creatures. But the guidance here is to be able to bring as much of the self as you want to the game, and in a way that's authentic to you. And that's encouraged through character creation and through the session 0 pieces. So there definitely will be those mechanics involved with safety tools that are built into or recommended by the game. And yeah, it's when we get to the path to restoration, which is what the second part of any sort of harm mechanic or impairment that's involved. That path to restoration is the balancing piece. So where Jamar's coming from with this is draining. And as someone who's also autistic, it's important to me that this is not a caricature. We want that path to restoration to look like, what is your coping mechanism in this case? That's going to be one of my questions for Jamar in our next session. What is Etsky's coping mechanism when they are drained this way? What do they do to build themselves back up as it pertains to this connection and as it pertains to them as a whole person, to try and add that realism back in? Because we all know there's a lot of media out there that makes caricatures of neurodivergence, of disability, of sexuality, of gender, of all of those different things, of different cultures. It exists. And while I can't promise that we will be perfect, we are going to put our money where our mouth is. And we're hiring consultants through each stage of things to get as much as we can. And there will be a list of them when we go to crowdfunding of who our consultants were, for transparency's sake. And once we have the money to put up a website, that kind of stuff will also be out there for transparency's sake. So it is definitely something we've thought a lot about. There are a number of people on our team. There are 33 people on our team currently, not counting consultants. And we have a variety of neurodivergence, of physical disability, of cultural backgrounds and life experiences. And we all want others to feel like they belong here with us, because we don't always find that. So that's why I wanted to touch on it, because it's important. Yes.
I want to say thank you to the person. My brain is a little stupid, so I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but I'm looking at your username.
That's Kara. You can just say Kara. He's
Kara.
one of my friends.
I appreciate that. The question, because for even in that moment when I was making it, I didn't really realize it was like, I kind of realized afterward, it was just like, my first thought was, it's an emotional thing. He's drained of people. He doesn't want to be around them. Because I was just like, that's just what I would do in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
It was like my quick thing. So I appreciate that. That's like, even though it was like kind of an unconscious thing, it was like being translated in a way. I don't know. I appreciate it. That's my point.
I'm going to say two quick things and then transition us into the next question. One, we're not perfect people. You can just speak for yourself. I don't know. I feel like I'm a perfect being. But
you are the closest thing I found to perfection. So
jokes aside, I do want to stress a point about the cultural consulting. I think one thing that's important is that despite us having a team of 33 members with a lot of diversity there, not all of us are touching every part, right? Like most of the other members are probably not going to read my culture during writing stages, just because realism, most of us don't have time or energy to read every other culture until we get further along, right?
Or they're
some of us
paid to
might,
do
'cause
so.
some people get super excited, but we can't expect to, and no one is being given the expectation to cross-check consultancy stuff on other people's writing. And so that's why we're bringing in consultants from an early on point, so that we can check things that need to be checked off the bat before it gets anywhere public. On that note, there was another question asked of, what was the reason that we wanted to create this type of game, and do you feel this game is what you had in mind when you thought of it? I kind of want to reframe that before getting to the original question, because that is more Chris oriented. I want to ask everyone else real quick, what did you have in mind of the game when you hopped on in the world, and have you been able to put that in to what you've been working on, do you feel like?
Unless anyone else wants to start, I was already talking, so I feel like I'll just go. I feel like when I remember when I first got the big description of it, and I've never been a mechanical person. I do like game mechanics, and I do go to school for it. But I usually like mechanics in terms of how it aids the story, because I'm a story first kind of girl. And when I read it, I was I need to be there, like I said earlier. But when we got to the mechanics and we were talking about how the cards and the suits play a role, I don't know, I couldn't even think of what I would have wanted it to be. It's much more than what I wanted it to be. And especially playing it now, I feel there are times where I can feel my D&D history coming back to be but what about the combat encounter and spell slots and resource management and all this other hoop-de-doodle? But we all got to where we needed to be without having all that extra crunchiness that comes with the kind of resource management. And I love that, because I know for a fact that for some people it's not a full turn off, but it's a barrier for playing tabletop games.
For me, this game was actually, I guess that it was a journey, the creation of the game, but a journey of being part of it. When I was first introduced into the game, what captivated me was the fact that you had so much more focus and fleshing out of your character first. You had that ability to create someone with prompts that weren't just randomized, that felt like you didn't have to fit a specific mold. And then, we were introduced into small aspects of the world, the aether, the magic of the world, and it was I was drawn in from as I said, the character creation, and then the world build, and then from there it was just the community that we brought within the game as well, that connectedness, that just strongly different, diverse environment that was beyond things that I've played before. So there was just such a more pleasant expansion of what we can be, what we can do, and who we can interact with. And as Chris and everyone here has the hype and energy for, it's so exciting, and it is a catalyst for everything else that progresses on from here. We all had this idea, this spark of wanting, this diverse game, a place where there is representation of things that you don't necessarily get, and then it's just grown from that in such a very, I think, natural way. It's not us, okay, we need to do this. That's sort of and funnily, that's how Omens Rising is, with the whole fate of the cards, etc. It's everything has just fallen into this beautiful place and is naturally growing into this wonderful game. So it's a journey, and it's an exciting, pleasant journey with wonderful people. So that's me with the game, and what I wanted to create, and it's kind of shaped what I want to be in the game community as well. So it's big influence.
Lua, do you have something you want to add to this answer for this question?
Oh gosh, it's me next.
Yeah.
Shoot, I totally had something and it's slipping from my brain as I speak.
Maybe.
Would it help if I restated the question? Okay.
Yes,
The
thank
question
you.
is sort of about initial expectations when you got onto this game, what you wanted to see from either the game itself or from the world, and do you feel you've been able to help bring that to life in whatever part you've had?
Yeah, there's so much about Omens Rising as a game, as a project, as a endeavor, on all of these different levels and layers that is intentional. There is, and I credit Chris with a lot of this, but there's a lot of intentionality into what is being done at every phase and every step of the game, of the creation, of the work that we're doing. My background is intersectionality consulting. And that was inspired by what I saw in the tabletop RPG community. I found myself frustrated and disappointed in the portrayals that I would see of South Asian culture. And I wanted to see myself truly in something, and I wanted to be able to make that impact and be able to help people change their games to be respectful and to be inclusive. And so that is what I do. But here was something that was from the ground up doing that, being intersectional, truly giving representation to everyone. And I personally did not even know what I wanted from this game when I started. I was just pulling some cards and I had no idea where this was going to go or what I wanted to create. Not a clue. It has just been an absolute joy to just be on this journey, watching this project grow and continue to be thoughtful about how we do things. And that's all I got.
And I guess I shall go next. So to dig into the secret origins, the not so secret origins of this game, but because I'm sure this will be pretty clear to anyone who has played that, and also will probably be put somewhere but a lot of the math for this game and a lot of the initial inspiration, and Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would not be incorrect in stating that Castle Falkenstein was a big basis for sort of pushing this project off, right?
Yeah, it was a basis for the mechanics. Yeah, absolutely.
And so a lot of the math started when I helped Chris out with some math for that. And Castle Falkenstein and this game have some neat parallels in the mechanical resolution system. But what I think is interesting about this and what I've loved seeing about this project is that it combines a lot of the things I enjoy from tarot-based games I've seen. There's a lot of cool indie RPGs that do a lot of stuff with tarot and the like that are very interpretation-based, right? Because that's the nature of tarot. And this game preserves a lot of that in its cartomancy-based roots. At the same time, having some of that more structure and crunch of the mechanical card-based, deck-based resolution system. And that blend and the way they combine was the sort of the thing that sparked my interest initially when hearing the basis of the system and seeing how each component has been meshing more and more to a point where you can directly flow from the fluid interpretations of the cards to the mechanical bonuses and the mechanical character sheet that you end up with for in play is super cool. And it's been really interesting seeing the turns the system has taken to get to the point that it's at. And even if some of the things isn't quite what was initially sort of imagined or even initially tried, it still preserved a lot of the core that hooked me in the first place.
I love every answer. When I first reached out to people about joining me on a journey, and really that's what it was. It was a journey. I didn't have a ton of solid expectations when it comes to end product. What I had was goals, more like a vision statement of sorts. I wanted to create or be a part of a group that created a game that could help enhance that sense of belonging. It's something that for me, finding belonging in the spaces in which I've been in has always been a struggle. But at the gaming table, when things are going well, it's a way to feel like part of you belongs. And I wanted to help build something that intentionally creates stories that fulfill us in that way, that fulfill that human need to feel like they belong, like they're included, like their story matters. And I know that there have been a lot of people recently in this space that are critical of the heroic tales, but I've never been one to blame it on a heroic tale as much as to blame it on the Tolkien inspired concept of what a heroic tale has to be, or the Eurocentric concept of what a heroic tale has to be. For me, a heroic tale is about leaving behind a legacy that will last for generations. And it could be generations within a small town or village. It could be generations across the entire globe of that world. The scale is up to us, but the heroism is still there, and you can capture that. Being a hero to your family is no less important than being a hero to a country or to a world or to a region. They just are different in scale. And that's what I believe we're capturing, is a way to tell stories that we can be proud of, that we can be inspired by, that can resonate with us, and that are memorable. I love walking away from a game that becomes memorable. That can happen in one shots, that can happen in 7-year-long campaigns, but it also doesn't happen at every table and with every game system. That's one of the goals of this. And that's why when multiple people use the word journey, my little heart just tried to beat out of my chest, because that's what this is. This is a game about creating journeys for stories. It's a game about the project is about walking the walk. You can't have a game that is inclusive without a team that is inclusive. You cannot have a game that is about a journey without the game itself being a journey. If you scripted everything out and are just hiring people to fill in the gaps, it is not a journey. It is a plan. And not one is better than the other, but they are not the same. And everything that I try to stress when I'm talking to people who are involved in this, I kind of help. I'm the rudder is what I consider myself. I kind of help, direct things back to where we're trying to go. And these people are the ones that make it happen. But it's about remembering that you should be intentional. When we do something, we do it because we have a reason to do it. We don't do it because it's easy. We don't do it because it's the first thing I thought of. We did it because this is why. Or we didn't do it. We purposely leave it out because this is why. Our harm system, or impairment is what it's called now, underwent like 3 or 4 or 5 different versions until we are where we are now. And it'll have to be fine-tuned even more. But it'll get there. And it's a beautiful thing. And I think we're going in the right direction. So I'd like to transition to outros. And I want to thank Emmer. That's exactly what I was hoping would happen, that we could take that question and start with all of you, because
Glad to help.
so that was perfect. Thank you for that. And let's go in the same order we started. So we'll go across the top. Wasa, remind us who you are, where we can find you, and all the lovely things we should remember about who you are between this week and next.
Hi guys, Wasa. Played a little bit of Flickr here. I am the Aether Tech person in Omens Rising, and I do a lot of my focus is the Aether realm, which I hope you guys will see a lot more of in the future. You can find me on Twitter at Wasabotte. It is Wasa, W-A-S-A, B-O-T-T-E. I just talk about random stuff. Sometimes it's mostly me obsessing over JJK at the moment. But you know, anime is currently my life. But I do write. I write things, and I write things hopefully of the goodest variety. I'm in NDA land for a lot of things, so I can't really share those bits. But that's what I do here, and part of the TTRPG community there. That's where you'll find me. Feel free to have a chat, have a gander, and I hope that you enjoyed a little insight into this wonderful game that we are creating.
I guess I'm next.
Yeah, thank you, Jamar.
Once again, I'm Jamar Musler. I didn't say before, but you can find me on Twitter, probably, retweeting memes at poppywolves.com. Oh, well, .com. Wow, no. Just poppywolves, like Spanish for father. Again, I am a student. I am a writer. I write for the culture that Itsuki is from. I'm also playing Itsuki because I am a narcissist at heart. And I adore witches, which is mostly what I write about, which is why I wrote one for this game. Otherwise, you can probably find me on most social media platforms, either by my name or by Poppy Wolves. So if you feel like hunting me down, good luck. That's it.
Thank you, Jamar. Leona?
Hi, my name is Leona. You can find me on Twitter at the Leona Maple, and that is the best place to keep up with all that I do. I am the person behind Maple Intersectionality Consulting. I am a sensitivity reader. I help make projects more inclusive, intersectional, stronger in the representation, and whatever else I can do to make the world a better place. You can also find me Saturdays at 2 p.m. PST over on the Dicey Amazons, running a little show called, I was about to call it Omens Rising, Vibrant Legends. These are all these epic level names, okay? Running a little show called Vibrant Legends. I was about to do it again. Running a little show called Vibrant Legends, which is an all BIMPOC one-shot series. If you're a BIMPOC, we would love to have you on the show. If you are not, we would love to have you in the chat, and we'd be honored to have you join us there. And I cannot wait to be back here next week to play Robin a little bit more.
Just a little bit.
Emmer.
I guess that leaves me. Hello, I'm Amr Emiraz. I am everywhere on the internet at Emiraz, primarily Twitter. I will be here for the next 3 Saturdays playing Hayat. Yeah, it didn't get to see much of them today, but stick around and you'll find out. Other than that, if you want to find more of me, you can find me in Writing Land, where I am working on NDA and Chimera and NDA. But look aside, so as a game designer, my project right now, besides like the freelance stuff, is Chimera, which is working towards a public playset release. But if you want to hear an actual play stream of it, you can check out the Utopia channel, and I will remind you all next weekend before the week before it goes live with our next episode. On top of that, if you want to catch me on a weekly basis, the Saturdays before this in the mornings from noon to 2-ish CST, So about 11 hours, 10 hours ago or so, you can catch me over on the Lark Network playing Super Splash of Color, an Bimpock Masks campaign, which is a lot of fun. It has been a blast so far, and it is going to keep being that. And we're in for a decent haul, so perfect time to hop on. Also, tomorrow, I'm going to be on the Arvin Elrond channel playing Sound Clash, the Clampdown, which is a game system created and GM'd by Brendan O'Brien at the Rising Tides on Twitter. It is a beautiful, fun mix of Battle of the Bands, Music is Magic, and some otherworldly horror stuff. Also an open podcast, and it is a blast. We're gearing up for our actual Sound Clash, so if you want to see us do Battle of the Band stuff, so you can come check that out. And that's about it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I'm Chris Geary. I am on Twitter and in the chat as Chris Geary. You can find me here on Friday nights playing Cyberpunk Red with Simon and the rest of the cast. You'll find me here next week as we delve more into Omens Rising. And before we take off, I want to hype up another game that just came out recently that I got to do a preview game of, and that is called Animon Story by Zach B. Free on Twitter. Zach Barrow. It is a fun, lighthearted monster game inspired by Digimon, Pokemon, Monster Rancher, all those kinds of games. It was a blast. It was lighthearted and really quick to pick up. So if you're looking for something like that to kind of give you that a shift from maybe something heavier, I highly recommend it. You can also find the VODs of the 2-part sessions that we had this past week on this channel, because it was here on this channel. So you can check out their VODs and see character creation, then a little bit of gameplay. But thank you everyone for coming. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you all in 1 week.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye-bye.